Greetings to all. I'm Becky King, and I'm one of the alumni career advisors at Wellesley, and I'm joined by my colleague.
Hi, I'm Dana Keep.
And we're delighted to have you with us today, and we're delighted to welcome our guest presenters, Katie McNamee and Kris Taylor, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. They have a fascinating story of how they met and formed both their independent consulting companies and their joint consulting company, Leap, together. And we know this topic is important to the Wellesley community. We get a lot of questions in our advising appointments about, I've been thinking, I think it's something I've always wanted to do, and maybe I just want to launch my own practice, my own consulting. Maybe I want to freelance. And today our topic is, let's find out if consulting is a good fit for you. So without further ado, I'm pleased to turn it over to Kris and Katie.
Well, welcome. I am Kris Taylor, and I am joined by Katie McNamee. And as Becky had said, we're going to share a bit of our stories, but we're also going to share with you today some ways you might tell if independent consulting or freelancing or going out on your own is for you, and some indicators that you might be a little more careful, might want to consider it a little more carefully. So that's our topic today. We hope that after this discussion today, you'll be able to start to think about not only your ability, but your readiness. Are you ready, or are there some things you need to get in place? We'd like to highlight some of those warning signs that might tell you that consulting isn't the best choice for you. And we often say that consulting is a great career choice for some, and it's not a great career choice for others. So we want to help you make that discernment. And if you do think after you hear us talk, like, yes, that's for me, this is something I've always wanted to do, or I think this is the time for me, we're going to talk into some steps. As Becky had said, we're going to allow about 15 minutes at the end for questions. So if you'd like to Q&A up, just put them in the chat box. And we'll be using the chat box a couple times today as well. So a little bit of background. So I'm the one here on the left, the older one. And after 10 years in nonprofit and 14 years with a Fortune 200 company, I took the leap. I went from absolutely loving my work and my employer to not liking it at all. And it was all about a merger and all the turmoil that came with that and a change in leadership direction. And I won't go into the messy details, but it was kind of like the perfect job, and then it wasn't. And I had always had this aspiration of going out on my own. I didn't know quite what it was, but I did know the kind of work I wanted to do. I was doing organizational change management, and I really loved that field. So back in 2004, I took the leap. I put in my notice. They were looking for people to exit the organization. So I got a severance that gave me about a 6-month cushion. And I formed my consulting practice, which is now reaching its 16th and a half year, called Evergreen Leadership. And with Evergreen Leadership, we work on especially 21st century skills for leaders. We do coaching, we do customized programs, we do retreats. We're just getting ready to launch a great new leadership development series. So that has sustained me for 16 and a half years. And I will say it was absolutely the best career choice I have made. And so that's why we're excited about helping other people think about this. I had the opportunity along the way to teach a course in the entrepreneurial program at Purdue in consulting. And one of the courses that I taught there was a capstone course. And we had seniors who would come in, and I would teach them the art of consulting, and they would actually go and do some practice with some local businesses. And that was where I met Katie Workman at that time. She's McNamee now because she's got married since then, but that was where Katie and I joined forces. So I'm going to hand the story over to Katie because that's where she comes into the picture.
Great. Well, thanks, Kris. Yep. So it was in the spring of 2016 that I was sitting in Kris's entrepreneurship capstone class, and I was facing graduation, and I knew I was going to have a degree in public relations and strategic communications and this certificate in entrepreneurship and innovation, but I wasn't quite sure what that actually meant for my future. I was starting to look around at jobs, and nothing really felt like it was calling to me. And so Kris offered a digital marketing internship to someone in this class. I raised my hand and she took me on as Evergreen Leadership's intern for that summer. And part of the work that Kris did with me was that 1 hour a week she devoted to professional development for me. So figuring out what my next steps were. And what we realized I was well positioned to do based on the portfolio I had built over my time at Purdue, was to launch my own digital marketing business right after college. And so if you had asked me while I was in college if this is what my intention would have been upon graduation, I would have laughed at you probably, but it just aligned up well that I knew the market need was there. I had the skill set to be able to help small businesses with their digital marketing and branding. And it was something I was excited about. I thought, why not try this now before maybe I become more established and decide this isn't what I want to do. I might as well just give it a shot. So Kris helped me build out Elevate Online, which I launched the summer of 2016. And kind of a funny story at the organization that I worked with through Kris's class ended up becoming my first paying client, and they are still a client with me now 5 years later. And so exciting to celebrate Elevate's 5th year this year, doing digital marketing and branding for entrepreneurs, creatives, and consultants. And what was neat was in 2017, Kris came to me and said, Katie, I really enjoyed the process of helping you get your business up and started. You have the recency of establishing a consultancy and understand what that's like, along with this background in marketing for small businesses. Kris has the expertise of having done this, learned from all of the different experiences that she's had, and knowing how to put together great materials to help others learn. And so we came together to form Leap. And as Kris mentioned, that was her best career choice. I cannot imagine my life any other way than having gone on this path. It's been such a benefit, and we are really passionate about helping others decide if this is the right thing for them, and then empowering them, if consulting is right, to build a business swiftly, smartly, and with support. So with that, our story's kind of in place. Here is what we want you kind of to understand when we're talking about independent consulting. We know there are a variety of kind of terms out there. A consultant might bring different things to mind for different people. So we want to ground you in what we're talking about before we get into telling you some ways you might decide if it's right for you or not. To us, an independent consultant is a person with extensive or specific professional expertise who provides their professional services to a variety of clients by setting up their own small entrepreneurial business. So that part is really key. We are talking about people who want to build out their own brand and their company identity. And what's neat is that since people bring in different talents, different work experiences, your consulting business and the type of work that you do will look unique to you. It might be a mixture of project work, speaking, writing, consulting, or some sort of mix of all of these that really make the foundation of what it is that you want to provide to clients and to the marketplace. What we're not really talking about today is people who want to be contractors. So a contractor is someone that provides professional services under another entity for a fixed duration. They are not a full-time employee. They work when and as required, and they might have their own business entity established, but really that work is secured and managed by an umbrella firm. We will say contracting is a great way to kind of dip your toes into the market of consulting. But if what you want to do full time is work under another entity or have that other entity secure the work, you might find that that contractor place is a better fit for you than being an independent consultant and really building your brand and taking that out into the marketplace. We also know that there's kind of a joke that a consultant is just somebody who's in transition. And while consulting can be great for people in transition, when we are talking about consulting, we're talking about building a business that stands over time, right? Kris is at her 16th year. I am now 5 years plus into it. So consulting might be an option for you if you're in this space, but if you want to become a full-time independent consultant, that is through the lens, which we will look today. So with that, we would love to know more about you. So which category best describes you right now, where you are today? Are you one, employed and researching various career options? Are you unemployed and researching various career options? Are you employed and strongly considering becoming an independent consultant? Have you maybe just started to do independent consulting? Or are you currently already consulting? What we know is people across the spectrum like to come and learn more. We've had people who are already consultants want to know, like, are they really a good fit for it? Or like maybe what's kind of like missing or not there currently, or just want to hear other people talk more about it. So it's nice to see some of these answers roll in. We've got such a great spectrum here today. Kris, I am seeing people employed and researching kind of maybe what they want their next steps to be.
I'm trying to actually learn something.
I know, you just fell on the head there.
Some people who are currently consulting, or maybe they've just started.
That's a great mix. And I think today, as we talk to folks, there'll be a little bit of something for everybody. And if no matter what your category is, remember that we're going to have about 15 minutes for Q&A. So
Yeah.
use that time, if we don't speak into something that you're interested in, to ask that question. And people ask Katie and I all kind of interesting questions. I don't think you'll surprise us or flummox us in any way.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. We're excited to get to learn a little bit more about you as we continue to go through this.
Well, and no matter where you are, we do have kind of a proposition, is we really believe that the market is right for people who are considering independence. And we wrestled with, we used to say this all the time, and then the pandemic hit. And there were lots of forces that we talked about. Increasingly, more and more employers are looking to hire outside professionals. And I could talk for about half an hour on all the reasons why. Increasingly, it's easier and easier to do this kind of work. Some of it's because of technology. There are just a lot of market forces that were making or enabling professionals to step into working on their own as independent professionals happen. And then the pandemic came, and Katie and I went, oh, wonder what we should be saying now. The interesting thing was the pandemic did only accelerated the trends we've been seeing. And we watched the trends. We actually have a market researcher that we work with that looks at the trends every single year. And we were, as we did a pulse check last year and the year before, the pandemic has kind of thrown fuel to the fire, both on the interest in doing this and also in employers needing ready skills, wanting to hire the right skill at the right time, increasingly looking to supplement their professional workforce with other independent professionals. So we do think that the wind is a little bit at your back, and that economically, and when you look at the big job market, the time is now. There are a lot of reasons that different people step into independent consultants. And over the past 4 years, we've worked with hundreds of them with LEAP, and we hear the themes that we hear. And I'll be curious to see which ones resonate with you, because you want to step into your business knowing your why. Mm-hmm. You want to understand what it is, what's the value proposition, or why this type of work calls to you, because then you can specifically design your business to amplify the thing that you want most. One of the themes we hear, and it was big for me, and I know it's big for Katie, is that idea of control and flexibility. That ability to have some control over your schedule, how much you work, when you work, where you work, who you work with. And the flexibility to shape your life and your career in a way that they meld together more seamlessly. I know that consulting has given me the flexibility to carve out some really specific time to be with my parents at the end of their life. It also gave me the flexibility to carve out some time when my daughter had twin babies. And I know if I had been employed, my employment would have been at jeopardy for me saying I wanted to take time for those important things. So it gives you a lot of control and flexibility. It does give you income potential. And I will say, I have been able to earn 6 figures every year for 16 and a half years, knock on wood, even through the pandemic. And I took a hit in the pandemic, but that was fine. So it's given me far greater income potential than had I stayed with my company. And I know for Katie, when we look at the income potential that she's been able to generate, it far outstrips that of her peers that have gone into regular full-time employment. Now, you've got to be smart about how you get that income potential, and we can talk more about that. But we do believe, and the research would show that there is strong income potential in doing independent consulting. For me, and I think this was the trigger that pushed me into independent consulting, it's to do more of the work that you love. As you know, I'm spent 26 years in organizations, and you get to do a little bit of the work you love, but not all of the work you love. And so as an independent consultant, you can shape, you decide what you want to offer out to clients. You decide what clients you want to work with. You can shape the work so that you're doing mostly the work you love. Now, I still don't love bookkeeping, and I still don't love some of the other things, but you know, I spend more of my time than not doing work that really fills me up. The other thing that I found over time was running a small business and doing independent consulting is a great way for me to challenge myself. My MO before doing this was every 2 or 3 years I change jobs or take on a different role because I was bored. And I have not been bored a day in my life since June of 2004. There's the challenge of running a business. Every client presents its own unique challenges. If I am bored, then I just do some research and add a new service offering and say, I want to learn how to do this. So there's challenges, they're good challenges, they're healthy challenges. And that to me is extremely appealing. And we find that it's appealing to lots of other people in this space as well.
So true. All right. So Kris, you ready to kick us off with the first of the 5 ways?
Yeah, so we're going to share 5 ways that would be 5 indicators that would tell you that this could fit for you. And then we're going to give you 5 warning signs. So here's the first 5. And the first one is this, and this is so core, is you need to have some expertise that the market is buying. You need to have marketable expertise. And when you break that down, your skills need to be relevant. They need to be in demand. You might be the world's expert in something, but somebody's got to want to buy that, right? You've got to have a skill that people are looking to outsource. The other thing that happens, and sometimes people get stuck in this place, is they are really good in their organization at something, but it is so niche, it is so narrow, it is so only specific to their company, or perhaps their industry if it's a small niche, that you're going to have a hard time transferring those skills. So asking yourself, do I have skills that transfer either across other companies in my industry or across other industries? And here's the thing, you got to be reasonably good at what you do. You don't have to be a world-class expert. You don't have to be the top thought leader, but you've got to be at least good. You can't be mediocre. And sometimes people say, I've always been interested in X, coaching or doing this. And I'll say, have you done it before? And they'll say, no, but I think I want to consult in that. And I say to them, you need to go learn how to do it. You've got to have that expertise under your belt. Katie, even though she started right out of college, had a portfolio. She had done some volunteer and some paid work so that she already had a portfolio that could show she had skills. So the topics that get to be marketable and in demand shift. Anybody that's been on the call that was here for Y2K, know that was really hot for a bit and then it's not. So, always keep your finger on the market. And one of the things we teach you to do at LEAP is how to do some market research. But right now, cybersecurity, big data, AI, micro learning, those are all pretty hot topics right now. The ones I'd be concerned about is if you had, again, that company specific expertise. If you're in IT and you're working on some platforms that are about to die. And here's another new one that we've added in the last year. If you're pretty good at doing some routine tasks, even if they're fairly complex, because the threat to you is that artificial intelligence is going to take over those tasks. So, take a hard look at your skills, your marketable expertise, and ask yourself if you have skills that you're good at and that the market is buying. So that's the first test. Katie, what's the second?
Yeah, I was just going to say and emphasize that like this is the thing that allowed me to launch right out of college, which I know like you used to say I was the exception, but what we've realized is like that's not what the data shows necessarily, that other people who have this established expertise are looking to go out straight after college as well, because the market needs them and they want to be independent. So awesome. All right. So number 2 is that you are a self-starter. What we have found over working with consultants and people who are launching at Leap is that the people who have the greatest success have a fire in their belly to do this and have the drive and desire to want to go out and see this through. As a consultant, there are going to be several things that you're going to have to do to on your own, right? Like you have to be able to get up every morning, whether you have clients or not, and be ready to work on your business in order to see it through. Clients are not just going to come to you. The services that you want to provide are not just going to put themselves together. There are several pieces that you're going to need to figure out both as you are establishing and starting your business, and then as you continue to go and see it through, that you will want to have this inner desire to show up and be ready to do the work day after day after day in order to see it through. And it's kind of funny that like this is such a big factor, but like I've said, it's just that we have seen the difference between people who are maybe somewhat going through the motions, or they kind of like get into it and then realize what I really want is just a long vacation several times a year. And so you have to be able to get that momentum going, especially at the start, and then continue to see it through. And we know too that, you know, for people coming out of corporate positions, it can be very different in terms of you might have had that set schedule. You might have had someone doing, you know, even scheduling for you, or have certain routines that were dictated upon you versus something that you decided yourself. And for people who really like routines and that establishment and someone else figuring out for them, consulting is not as great of an option, because you're going to be the one who's really getting to decide, this is what my schedule looks like, this is when I'm showing up and how, and seeing it through. So just one factor to consider as you are looking to go out on your own. All right, Kris.
Okay,
Number 3.
Here's our sassy little lady at the lemonade stand. And I just love her attitude. The question is does being an entrepreneur excite you, or a solopreneur? And, you know, sometimes we think entrepreneurs have to build big enterprises and employ hundreds of people, but I would say to you, consulting for me has been extraordinarily entrepreneurial, and that excites me. I had started a business back in my 20s that didn't survive. But, you know, I walked out of that experience and said, I want to do something on my own again. I'm excited. I like all the parts of business. There are other people who the thought of having to deal with trying to find the work and then do the work and then find the work again doesn't really excite them at all. So ask yourself, how do you really feel about running the small business? It means that you're going to have to be kind of a jack of all trades. You're going to have to know a little bit about accounting and bookkeeping and business structure and marketing and sales. I love that about it, but other people don't love that about it. And it's a very much an individual decision. So if you can relate a little bit to this sassy young lady at her lemonade stand, this might be the thing for you. And if you go, you know, not so much, just it's a data point, right?
Right. And like, there's no right or wrong answer.
No.
It's just about really understanding you in order to figure out what is best for you.
Yeah.
What's
So
next?
Katie, what's number 4?
All right. Number 4 is if you are waving the white flag and you want to take control of your life, you are in good company. And it might be that consulting is right for you. We have had this as part of this presentation since pre-pandemic times, if we can all remember that. But I think like this has become even more of a data point, like you said, Kris, as we look at what the pandemic has done to the way people are working. I know some people are hesitant to want to go back into an office space. Other people crave like that feeling of being around the people that they are working with. And so if you are taking an honest look at where your life is right now, and you think the position that I am in is not allowing me to create and step into the type of life that I want, it might be a sign that you feel ready to go out on your own and begin consulting. As Kris mentioned, with the control and flexibility, that is something that we each cherish so much. We know that that is a commonality among other consultants. And what consulting can allow you to do is shape and create and step into that life that it is, that you might imagine how that balances with your work and your family. But on the other hand, if you feel happy to be in the position that you're in, you really enjoy the people that you are working with, you see how the career that path that you're on builds into that overall vision of the life you want, you might take a harder look about whether you really want to be stepping out on your own or not.
Well, and this is a lot about agency too, and stepping into it. And it's not easy. It's worth doing, but it's not easy. And yeah, it's a lot of work to stand it up. For me, it's worthwhile. It's absolutely worthwhile. So that idea of the desire and the motivation you have to step out and do something that's big for you, right?
Totally.
I think is so important, which leads us to number 5.
Woo.
This lovely keyboard. So I had alluded to this or talked into this when we talked about being entrepreneurial. But there is just, ask yourself, how well do you do with unpredictable schedules, a variety of different types of work, different clients, different situations, times where you've got a lot of work, times where you have less work. There's just, every day is a different day. Now, I like that because I get bored really, really fast, but I have other friends and colleagues and coworkers who really are like the stability a little bit better. They like to know what their calendar looks like next week, or, sometimes I don't know. And so, ask yourself, how are you with changing situations? How are you if, another economic upheaval comes and you got to rethink your business? So there's lots of variety with it. Some people think that's grand and wonderful, and other people, it makes them want to throw up, right? So you just got to ask yourself, again, these are self-reflective questions about who are you truly as a human being, and is this career a good fit for you? And there's not a right or a wrong, but I will tell you that there's a ton of variety in both what you do, how you do it. Every client, every engagement's a little bit different. Every day's a little bit different. As you start to look through, depending on the economy, there are hot times and there are slow times. I think being a good consultant, you're always keeping your skills sharp and you're adding things to it. Katie's probably seen 5 or 6 different service offerings just in 4 or 5 years because she's staying on top of the market. So you got to ask yourself if that's something that appeals to you or doesn't.
Wonderful. All right. So those are the 5 signs consulting might be for you. Now we're moving into those warning indicators, and I'll give you a preview of something that we'll be talking about after we go through these. But just know that these warning indicators really are fixable as well, or you can plan around how it is that you move through these. If after what we just said, you're like, yes, this is what I want to do, but then several of these warning indicators pop up. So we're going to go through some signs that, either consulting isn't right for you or it's not right for you yet. And you might need to do a little bit of planning to get into a better place. So the very first warning indicator would be if you lack verifiable credentials. And this is kind of the other side of that piece of marketable expertise. So if you look back to what is it that you have marketable expertise in, can you prove that you can do what you say you can do with that marketable expertise? And that's what verifiable credentials are. They are the pieces that you can take to potential clients to say, yes, this is why I am qualified to be a consultant for you in this specific way. And there are 4 kind of types of credentials that you might have. The first is a degree. And so since you are on this call with Wellesley, we know that you have that one covered, right? But what we also know is that sometimes people's paths take different, turns that they don't expect. And so what it is that they might want to consult in might not actually be what their degree's in. So you might have to pause and consider, is that really the credential that I want to leverage most? Or are there others that I can add to it to show kind of this beautiful overlay of my path? And how is it that I can serve my clients? There are also certifications. So what we talk about when we think of certifications is, what is it that really matters to my client that I want to be serving? So if you are thinking, let's say, of doing some sort of HR consulting, there's a variety of types of certifications in that area. You would want to consider like, all right, in this specific area, does this certification matter to my client? So it all goes back to, what is it that matters to the client and that I can prove that I can do this type of work that I'm talking to them about. Other types of credentials include portfolio pieces, right? And so this was something I was established in when I was going out to start my business, because I had spent time freelancing throughout college to build websites for different organizations, both on and off campus, done social media. And so I was able to take those examples, put them together in either a virtual portfolio or just pull on them when I was talking to potential clients in order to demonstrate that I understood their type of issue, I had solved it before, and here's how, and this is kind of what the end product looked like. So consider, in the work that you've done, what are the portfolio pieces or work experiences that you could draw on to demonstrate to an ideal client that you can do that type of work. The last type of verifiable credential is especially important as a consultant, and that is a testimonial or a referral. And so a testimonial is when you have that outside person vouching for you and verifying for you that you are capable and excellent in the work that it is that you do. Testimonials can be so key because sometimes it's that testimonial into a client that can get you into those initial clients, right? So we call those referrals. And what that does is just really warm up the conversation for when it is that you are talking to a potential client, because you already have someone vouching for you and saying, like, this is the person that you want to be talking to for this thing. So if you look at this and think, okay, in the area that I'm consulting in, I'm not sure what verifiable credentials I have. Maybe just take some time to catalog. How is it that you can prove that you can do this type of work that you would want to take out into the market? All right, warning indicator 1. What's up next, Kris?
Well, this is what at Leap we say is a consultant's second most important asset. Your first is your knowledge, your skills, your experience. Your second is your network. And so take a long, hard look at your network and the state of your network. I love talking into this slide because I go back to 2004 when I was getting started, and I had the most pathetic network you can imagine. I had a really strong network inside my organization, and I had a really poor one outside. And so I have worked really hard over the past 16 years to grow an extraordinary network. But it doesn't happen without some work and some thought. So take stock of your network, and your network can include a lot of different people that know your work and are willing to be a referral or a testimonial or a reference for you. People in other organizations that you may be able to talk to about what you're doing and to see if they have a need. Who's in your network that might be a peer or a collaborator? Who's in your network that might help you coach you into this new place you want to be? But think really hard about the state of your network. And the other thing is, we would advise you, or we would tell you, that your network is measured in ways other than just how many LinkedIn connections you have. You might have 3,000 LinkedIn connections, and 2,999 of them don't have any idea who you are, right? And that's an exaggeration. But what is the strength of your network? How big is it? How broad is it? How well do they know you and your work? How much of a support can they be as you step into this? So take a really hard look at your network.
I'll say you're in a
And if
great place to network right now too, right? Within
Oh,
the
absolutely.
Wellesley community. So many
Yes, absolutely.
great people. Awesome. All right. So the third warning indicator would be that you have no financial safety net. What we know about consulting is that sometimes it can take a bit to get to that first ideal client and to start generating the type of income that maybe would make up for whatever kind of position it was or wherever you were previously. And so what we recommend people do is to consider their expenses and analyze what type of financial safety net would they need in order to feel comfortable going for a few months potentially without that income. We also know that being able to manage finances well is important throughout your time as a consultant, because, sometimes you can spend the time networking, marketing, getting that client, then you can actually secure the work. And then depending on the size of corporation you're working with, it could be net 30, 60, 90, until you are actually paid. So being able to manage that well, both while you start and then also throughout the process, we have found to be important. And what I actually love about this warning indicator is it really is one of the most fixable ones. It's one you can really plan for by starting to either set aside money now or thinking about what are strategic ways I can start building my business as I'm still in my position, so that when I am ready to hit that switch and go into consulting, I am that much closer into that first paying client. So just consider the current state of your finances. How comfortable would you be without a few months of income? And then kind of think of, what are some ways I can start to potentially negate this warning indicator? Or maybe you're in a great spot, in which case it's a good sign for what's ahead for you.
That is true.
All right, number 4, Kris.
Yeah, this one is less fixable than some of the others. Is the thing about running a small business and then stepping in and working with clients is you are continually in situations where there's not a clear yes or no. Clients come to you and they'll share the place that they are, and you're going to have to craft that into some kind of an approach to help them get to a better place. I mean, typically clients aren't coming to you because all things are wonderfully going along swimmingly, and they just, want to have you hang out with them. They're in a place. You are going to be stepping into organizations where you don't know the history and culture. You don't know where the landmines are. You don't have, when I was with an organization for 14 years, I knew where the political landmines were. I knew the lay of the land. I knew where I could call in favors. I knew how to work the organization. As a consultant, you're stepping that into that relatively blindly, typically working on something that's painful for them and trying to figure out how to do it really well. So if you have a difficult time of stepping into ambiguity and complexity and making sense of it, quite honestly, you're going to struggle. It's going to be the same situation when you think about your own business. I would suspect most people who are listening on this call today or listening to this recording have a rich skill set to draw from that probably is pretty marketable. But then asking that question of what is it that I want to offer as my services? That's an ambiguous situation. It's a big decision that's important, but it can be ambiguous. So consulting is fraught with all those kinds of decisions where you've got to make a go forward call, even though you don't have all the information. And so if you find yourself getting really stuck in those or spinning around a lot or unable to move forward, instead of saying, I know this, I don't know this, I think this is either the right path forward, or this is the best next step, or this is something else I can need to know. So ask yourself how well you do in ambiguity and being able to manage through complex situations when there's not one clear path forward. And Katie, the last one.
Number 5 of the warning indicators is if promoting yourself and selling absolutely terrifies you. I will share, when I was starting my business, I was scared of selling. In terms of anytime I would walk into those conversations with an idea of understanding that like some numbers were going to have to be put on the table. I was going to have to talk about, actually getting this turned into a paying engagement. I would have kind of the sweaty palms. I would be feeling like a little bit unsteady, just knowing that this was the conversation that was going to be had. But through the techniques that we teach at Leap, which is about value-based and relationship-based selling, understanding that, really what, no matter what, I'm going to be doing what's best for the ideal client. So it kind of makes it low pressure in a way of, I only want to go forward with this if this is the best thing for them. And I know this is a good thing for me in terms of the finances are fair and right. That helped me get through it. But if you are imagining these situations where you have to sell and you have to promote yourself too, right? You have to be doing the marketing to get into those clients and the networking to get into those clients. If you can't imagine that, that is going to be something you either decide, can I work through this through learning techniques or through actually the practice of doing it, which was also helpful for me, or if you absolutely cannot, then that might be where you might consider something like contracting instead, where another organization is finding and securing the work for you, and you don't have that entrepreneurial brand presence in the marketplace. So just consider, could you get through a conversation? The answer is yes. I think over time it gets much easier, but like if you cannot imagine even one part of it, this will be something that's kind of hard to work through because you have to sell to make money. That's that is the simple fact of it. No one's going to just put that proposal together there for you. So, all right, Kris. So a little bit of summary. What do you got?
Yeah. So Katie, kind of tip the hat, is there are some of these warning indicators that you can fix over time and with effort. So this is not a, no, I don't have it and I'll never have it, but you can think about the work you want to do, the credentials you're going to need, and you could get that certification. You could do some pro bono work to demonstrate you can do it. You can look for referrals and testimonials. So you can do that. Absolutely. Some other things you can do, I've built an extraordinarily strong network, and you can do that too. It takes focus and intentionality, but if your network isn't where it needs to be, that's something that you absolutely can fix. And financial safety net is one of those really tangible things. Is we've worked with people at Leap who have taken 3 years and they have just positioned themselves to have a really solid financial safety net, combination of saving and downshifting their lifestyle. But that's something that is doable, and you can learn some ways to make decisions quicker. So all these are fixable over time. I think it becomes a question more of your readiness, right? Like, which one of these do you need to fix? You can learn to come up. I've had to overcome my fear of selling. I've had to learn to do it. I've had to teach myself how I can step into that and look at it as a value-added relationship building experience instead of a hard sale. So you can do these things. The question is where are you on those? So again, just a summary of some things you might want to think about. And I'm just going to walk through them, and mentally you can start to think about these. Do you have marketable professional expertise? Are you a self-starter? Does the idea of having your own small business excite you or scare you? Do you really have this strong burning desire to take control of your life, your work, your career? And are you okay with a lot of variety? So those are the things that if you can check yes to those, you're in pretty good shape. Do you have the right credentials? Do you have the right network? Do you have a financial safety net? How are you on decision making, especially in complexity or ambiguity? And how are your sales skills? Now, again, I just want to leave you with many of these are fixable, but I think this starts to give you a tally or a check sheet to say, I've got what it takes. I'm ready to start now, or I need to get focused on doing these 3 things, and then I'm going to be ready. Or perhaps at the end of our conversations, you could say, well, this was interesting, but I'm really probably better served to stay in the place that I am right now or to come at my career a different way. And that's perfectly okay too.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah.
So some things that you can think about would include just, deciding, what is the top thing that you need to get into place to either start or be more successful as an independent consultant. So we love if you put this into the chat. You can select some of these, multiple, but maybe even two if you want to focus in on, one thing, great as well. But do you need to sharpen your marketable professional skills, document the proof of your skills, build your professional network, build your entrepreneurial skills and knowledge, or create a safety net? What are some things that people are considering as kind of their next step out of this conversation? Love to see some of those roll in. And so as we do, we want to share a couple different resources that we have available to you. So put your answers in the chat. We'll look through. And we have some special offers for you. So there is a special Wellesley page where you can go for both paid LEAP resources and free resources. I'm going to start with what we've got for the free ones first. On this page, you can download our Biz 101 document, which contains 10 steps to starting a consulting business. This is the first document that Kris and I use in our launch series, which is a 6-session series that people go through in order to get the foundation laid for their business and understand then how they can take that into the marketplace through marketing and selling. But you'll get a nice high level overview of what that launch path actually looks like. And we've had people who have even already been started take a look at that and realize they missed some of the steps. And that's why they were kind of struggling to get where it is that they wanted to be. So that's there. Kris wrote a book called Owning It, Take Control of Your Life, Work, and Career. And you can download. Oh, thank you, Becky. Yeah. That you can download in a free chapter of, so you can get a little taste of what that book is like. And that's especially helpful for people who are considering consulting or maybe just starting. We also have consulting conversations with Kris and Katie. And so those are weekly 5-ish minute videos that Kris and I drop on different consulting topics. So there is a wealth of information. I think we've got like 60 videos there. So chances are, if you have a specific topic you're interested in, somewhere in there we probably have it. And if not, send us that idea, because we are always looking for more ways that we can add value and bring those conversations in there. So you can find a landing page with all of that information at this link. And I also just put it in the chat. And we have 2 paid kind of resources we want to cover with you briefly, and then we'll open it to questions. I know I've got a little time after to stick around too, depending on how many questions we've got. So the first offer we have for you is our Prosper Consulting community. We have designed this community intentionally to support and grow consulting and freelancing businesses. We have people who are in it anywhere from still in their corporate job, looking how to plan, wanting inspiration, wanting support as they make their transition into consulting, all the way through established consultants who want to continue to sharpen their skills and are also seeking that community. Because one thing Kris and I found starting our businesses was sometimes consulting can be lonely, right? Like you're working on this by yourself. You've gone from having your coworkers or whoever is around you before to kind of doing this independent thing. But just because you're independent doesn't mean that you're alone. And so we've designed this community to step in and support you there. We have live events each month. We have a 24/7 coaching in a private Slack channel for our Prosper members. And we also have a digital resource library that has all the recordings from our live events that you can access as soon as you join. So normally this is $125 a month for access to all of it. And we wanted to just give you a nice discount. And so if you register, I think it's by December 6th, then you can have access for just $75 a month for 3 months. So you can learn more about that on this landing page. And also, if you're with us in January, you get free access to our 2022 Quick Start Summit, which is something we're really excited about. So our summit is a 3-hour virtual event that brings together freelancers and consultants from across the globe to start their year focused and inspired. Right now, we have our early bird pricing going on. If you want to check that out, you can. Once again, on this page, we have more information about it. What is fun about Quick Start is we have a variety of speakers who are experts in their own right, but they've also been through LEAP. So it's fun to see where our alumni are, how they're doing, and they kind of get to share and impart some of their wisdom. During it, we talk about how you can dare to dream big, how you can move from dreaming to doing, and then help you leave with intention and inspired. So there's several key pieces, like a 30, 60, 90-day plan you'll put together. You'll spend some time just imagining what is it that your year could look like. So learn more about that at leaprightnow.biz/Wellesley. Like I said, we have our early bird pricing till the end of November. So now is a great time to get that on your calendar. So with that, I'm good for questions.
All right. Thank you, Kris and Katie, for your very, very concrete ways of thinking about this move. That was really, really helpful. And clearly you both have different and complementary experiences yourselves to share, which I really appreciate. So I see a couple of questions about the common things that probably consultants deal with, which are health insurance, retirement savings, billing, and taxes. Those are 4 pretty big topics, which I'm sure you go into more detail in your book and things, but anything you can share on this call about those 4 areas?
Yeah, we always preface this with we are not attorneys or your personal financial advisors. However, those are all important questions to ask and to get some answers to. The health insurance is the biggest impediment most people face in moving to independence. And there's a lot of different ways to come at that, from purchasing on the open market. One of the perks I had at teaching at Purdue was I had health insurance. So you've got to figure that out. And I wish I could say something different, but it's not easy. It's one of the biggest challenges. The question of what business entity type you want to be, whether that's an S Corp or an LLC, we would advise you to find a really good local small business attorney, somebody who understands small businesses, and they will look at you, the amount of risk in your business, the amount of assets you need to protect, and they will help guide you to the right discussion there. And then the other one was about billing or something, or
Taxes.
Billing, taxes, retirement savings. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I will just say, it's really easy to talk to somebody else that's consulting in the field that you're interested in. And let's just say you talk to them and they say, oh, and I'm charging $300 an hour. And you go, oh, wow, that's exciting. And you do the math and you do it wrong. You do 300 an hour times 40 hours times, oh, I don't really want to work 40 weeks. And you come up with a big number, right? The fallacy with the things that you need to understand, and that's the difference, is Uncle Sam is going to want his fair share, and you're going to need to allocate the funds that come out of your regular paycheck to other things like a 401k or however you want to set up your retirement pieces. So, and the expenses of running your business. Mm-hmm. So understand that that math fails for that reason. The other thing that math is going to fail you on is, I don't know anybody that bills 40 hours a week times 40 weeks a year. So
if they do, they're exhausted. That's
if
what
they do. I don't know how they do that.
Because they've got everything else to run too.
Yeah. We've got lots of strategies, because one of the things that we help teach you is how to level out that sell-do cycle, because the trap people fall into is they're either selling or they're doing, and they get into big dips and valleys. So our goal is to help you even that out and to create a sustainable, replicable income with an evergreen marketing strategy that helps you continually have people in your pipeline. But make sure you think about the math and just don't make the mistake of X number of hours per hour times a more employee-based way of looking at the world.
We had another question about if you do not want to use Facebook or social media to start your contemporary business consulting practice, what alternatives do you suggest if that's sort of the?
Oh, this is a great Katie question.
We have such good news for you, and that is you do not have to use Facebook or any of its family social media platforms to have a successful consulting business. What we teach in the launch series is really that the number one way of marketing that we recommend kind of across the board for consultants is strategic networking. So like figure out how is it that you build those relationships in your life or in your business that are going to support you and that you can give back into as well to find those clients. When you look from the digital marketing perspective of thinking about where is it that my ideal client actually is online, chances are they might be on Facebook or Instagram. But when you're in the more B2B space, as consultants are, LinkedIn is the space where that happens. So if there's a place that we recommend you really strengthen your presence as far as social media platforms go, it's taking a look at your LinkedIn and seeing like, does this really represent my experience as well? Am I connected with people that like I know are in my network, or maybe have I been slacking on that? Because LinkedIn is a great way of doing research before you have those networking meetings. It's a great way of sending a follow-up. It's a great way of staying in front of your connections. So that's really the space that we recommend across the board people play. There are some consulting businesses that fit well if they want to be on Facebook or Instagram, but we really recommend focusing in on LinkedIn first. So
And building relationships to market and speaking or being a part of a professional association or being a part of a group like this. So there's lots of ways to come at it.
Oh yeah. I just was doing the ones kind of more specifically. Yep.
What are your thoughts about hourly billing versus value billing?
So there are a number of different ways you can bill your services. You can bill by the hour, you can bill by the day, you can do a fixed price bid, you can do a retainer based, you can do value based. And so one of the things is we will, the right answer is what are the goods and services you're providing and what is it that works for your client? And they're going to be, now I will say there's an increasing demand for clients to do value-based pricing. But even still, even if you're doing hourly or project-based, you're still going to want to make sure that the price that your client is paying, they are extracting at least that much value, if not more, out of your services. So the big answer in that is it depends on your client, it depends on your services. And in some ways it depends on the business you want to build. So Katie's a good example of she's built a business where she's got extraordinarily stable income over time that's predictable because she uses a retainer-based model.
Mm-hmm.
The other question we have is, what about the ebbs and flows, the flux, the burnout, how do you deal with that when you don't have the security of a full-time job to bolster you and keep you going?
I'd say one thing that we're really passionate about at Leap is helping people build those businesses that they love. And if that's like, if you're currently consulting and you're not in that space, I think that's totally normal too. It's how is it that you pause, kind of assess where it is that you are currently, think about where is it that you want to be and start crafting that path into it. Like I've made so many pivots in my business since I've started. I use this hand motion to describe that like gradual wiggling almost into that place that it is that you really want to be. And like, as you go through different seasons in your life and in your business, I think you'll find, some periods are far busier than others, but if you're constantly in a state of burnout, I think it's forcing yourself to make space to ask, what is it that's really holding me back right now? Or what is it that's overwhelming me? And how is it that I can start to step by step move into a better future?
And I think, as consultants, if we're over, the boss that you're mad at is yourself, right? If you're overextended and stressed and aren't sleeping well and can't lead a healthy lifestyle, you got to look back in the mirror and say, you've designed your business poorly, or you're executing it poorly, or you haven't set the right boundaries. And I know Katie and I are both really strong advocates of build a business that is healthy for you, right? after this, I'm going to go take a walk. You know, you should be able, with diligence and with some good solid thinking, to design a business that doesn't burn you out.
Well, and sometimes it's learning how to set boundaries, which I think can be
Yeah.
an issue for some people. And so
Yeah.
it's a work in progress over time to be
Yeah.
able to confidently say no when that work is not right, or if you know it's going to overwhelm you. But it does require looking in the mirror and saying, what is it that needs to be done to get me? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean there are some times that I will work Saturdays, or, you know, there are going to be times where I've got just a lot of work on my plate. But if you averaged it out, there are not weeks I typically work more than 40 hours a week, right? There just aren't, because I built it that way. But, you know, it's not even and steady. So there are going to be times you're just going to hunker down. The key is, like, don't be in those over sustained periods of time.
Mhm.
Also,
Well,
I'm
thank
just
you.
wondering on, do you have, is there a support group, like a consultant support network that you're part of, or you know, is that something?
That's why we love the Prosper community, and that's why we created it. Is number one, it's lonely, but two, we help and support each other answer those questions. And we call it Prosper with the idea that our notion of prosperity is creating a career and a life that works for you. And it's not about just earning as much money as you can possibly bank. Now, if that's your goal, have at it. But we think prosperity has a much deeper and more resonant meaning about your entire life, living in a way that you can be nurture the relationships, do the work you love, have the freedom and flexibility. So I would encourage people to check out the Prosper community.
Well, Kris and Katie, I'm seeing a lot of very positive comments and thank yous in the chat. I think it's great that you shared too, that this doesn't happen overnight. It's evolving. You can, you know, change and pivot along the way to make it, you know, to maximize what's working and correct what's not working. So we thank you both for sharing your expertise with the Wellesley community. We really appreciate it. We'll say an extra round of thankfulness since it's November. So really very much appreciate your sharing what you know. And thanks to all of you who joined us for this wonderful presentation. We hope it was helpful. And we wish you all a great Thanksgiving. Thanks again.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
We appreciate it.